We got so many questions today for Dr. Morgan Cutlip, all about burnout, which tells me that this is a really important subject that we haven't really taken a ton of time to dive into. As I said yesterday, burnout is something that almost every single one of our guests who's come on BDA Baby has talked about feeling and experiencing at some point in their parenting journey. Whether you have little kids or older kids, the feeling of burnout is definitely something that's experienced in all phases of parenthood. And of course, it's not just moms only, but there were so many questions, so I'm really excited to get right to it and talk to Dr. Morgan Cutlip. Oh, perfect.
Hello.
There you are.
Great. I'm so
How
excited
are
to
you?
talk with you.
I know, I am too. I also just have to shout you out because I want everyone to know that for BDA Baby, I book everybody. Like, I slide into everybody's DMs. I get referred to by people and book guests. And you had slid into my DMs wanting to talk about this. And I am so grateful that you did, because I not only love when people just say like, hey, this is a really important subject and I'm an expert in it and I think it'd be great to talk about, because I think that that's such a great and awesome thing that you did and how we're here today. And also, I'm so happy that we decided to talk about it, because the amount of questions that I got from people just asking about burnout, I know it's such a real subject, and I'm so happy that you came on and suggested it and that we're talking about it, because it seems to be, especially now, like blowing up as being a really important issue with parents,
COVID,
right?
For some reason, this really has like risen to the forefront. And I feel like just in being on social media, there's just like stuff in the zeitgeist where it's like the identity of moms and losing yourself in motherhood and burnout and mental load are all things that are just getting a lot more discussion lately. And I think it's so incredible, and it's just such an important topic. So it was like serendipitous, because I reached out to a friend you had interviewed and was like, how can I connect with her? And then that day you followed me and I was like, you have to be kidding me. So I'm thrilled to be here chatting with you. And this is just a topic that's so just close to my heart. So I appreciate it.
Well, I see that my mom is here, and I talked to my mom about this actually a lot. Mom, we're talking about burnout. So with all of my mom friends, all of them talk about being, you know, stretched too thin, feeling burned out, not having enough time for themselves. I also think that when a lot of us who are, you know, becoming moms or recently have become parents, we also talk to our parents' generation about this. And it seems like a lot of these conversations didn't happen when, you know, when my mom was raising me and my siblings. The conversation or subject of burnout wasn't something that was talked about. Can you talk a little bit about why it is something that's now discussed more, and which is great. And also, I think sometimes when you have more awareness of it, maybe you focus on it more than generations did
question.
before.
I put a little bit of thought to it. My mom's on here too. She's like, I'm here too. All the moms.
Hello, mothers.
I remember once asking my mom, like, didn't you get really overwhelmed? What did you do in motherhood when you needed help and support, and like when you were confused about what to do in motherhood? She's like, I just called my friend and did what they did. And I think that there's a lot of truth to just how motherhood has shifted over generations in what she said, which is that we are raising kids in a time where there is just this plethora of information for us to take in and to sort through. And I think that that's a real blessing, because there's experts all over the place sharing their insight, sharing their wisdom.
Right.
But then there's sort of like, there's always like the two sides of a coin, right? Then there's this dark side, which is that it creates this real tension, I think, within parents in general and moms specifically, around wanting to make sure we do it perfectly and we do it right and thinking that there's a right way and a wrong way. So there's this intensity to which we parent today that's different, I think, than our parents' generations. And also we're exposed to all of this comparison and just information that I think creates a different level of overwhelm. I do think, though, that the same amount, like I do think burnout existed for our parents' generation, but maybe the mentality around it was a little bit different. The opportunity for conversation around it, I think, was very different. So maybe those conversations were happening behind closed doors at like a play date or something like that, but not more like globally on the internet through social media and things like that. And so I think there's some tangible shifts and also a lot of overlap in our experiences.
You posted a video that I thought did a really great job explaining and defining what burnout is, because I think a lot of parents might be listening to this or hear mom burnout and say, do I have that? Is that something that I'm experiencing? How do I know if I have burnout? Can you go through like the top 3 things? I think you posted a video talking about the top 3 things that you experience when you know you have burnout as a parent, just so people know
So I'll go
what exactly it
technical
is
and
that we're talking
practical.
about.
So there's 3 main signs. The one is emotional and physical exhaustion. This is one that we just feel. We'll be like, oh, I'm so burnt out. That's usually the one we're referencing. The other is depersonalization or numbing. And this is when I think all of us could probably identify how we do this. A lot of us do it through scrolling. So pick up our phones, we kind of tune out, but it's actually not recharging, restorative, or restful because our brains are still really active during that time. And then the third is impairment in our ability to regulate. So we are more irritable, snappier at our kids. We have less patience, frustrated with our partners, that type of stuff. So it manifests in all sorts of like ways that we sort of normalize in motherhood, but it's actually a sign of burnout. So being really forgetful, not really being able to remember your words, walking into, I do this sometimes, walking into a room and I'm like, what the heck am I doing in here? I can't even remember why I came in here. Losing your keys, your creativity sort of starts to feel really hard to access. It's that feeling of kind of like I have things floating around in my head, but I can't seem to grasp them. Stuff like this that really is a red flag of like either I'm burnt out or you're headed down the path of burnout.
My mom's saying putting boundaries on social media, which I think is, you know, obviously everybody ideally wants to have boundaries on social media. And when I saw your video saying that one of the signs of burnout was this kind of numbing behavior that I think so many of us do, which is just kind of mindlessly scrolling on whatever it is, whatever social media account you might find yourself on or online shopping, whatever it looks like, is a way to, you know, say like, okay, maybe I am experiencing burnout because it is stimulating your mind. It isn't allowing you to fully relax. I also thought that it was interesting that when you talked about this idea of numbing yourself and, you know, taking the burnout feelings that you might feel and saying like, oh, I'm going to relax by scrolling on social media. There were also a lot of people who wrote in saying, what are ways to deal with mom burnout that is not involving alcohol? There is a huge, you know, social media, I think, has done a really good job highlighting a lot of the things that moms do and also a lot of the ways that moms choose to bond with one another and relax and also find, you know, friendship with one another by venting about their kids, their husbands, their partners, their lives, you know, in a funny way a lot of the time. There also is a big presence of alcohol in, you know, parents or, you know, moms talking about, oh, I want to have a glass of wine or I want to have a glass of this. And I have no judgment to that. Obviously, like everybody does their own thing. There were a couple questions which I thought was interesting of parents, moms wanting to know if you had any suggestions for other ways, alcohol aside, that didn't involve alcohol, to assist with mom burnout.
So I'll just comment on that first, because I think there's like a theme that taps into whether it's the scrolling or the alcohol or anything like that. And that said, it's sort of this escapism, this numbing out, this escapism piece. And it's not that having a glass of wine is a bad thing. It's not that scrolling on the internet or social media or shopping is a bad thing, but it's the intention behind it that I think we really have to pay attention to. So the rule here is, can you increase your self-awareness in these moments to do it more mindfully? And so if you're like, well, I think right now I really do want to just like watch a bunch of TikToks or watch a bunch of reels or spend some time on social media, then great, enjoy that time. But if you're doing it to just not tackle regular life, and then when you come off of the app, you feel terrible, which is what happens a lot of times, is you end up feeling kind of crappy after we consume content like that. That's when it's important to have a moment of recognizing this, tuning into yourself and saying, okay, I need to be a little bit more boundaried. And it's the same with alcohol. If I'm just like mindlessly walking towards my bottle of wine at the end of the night, pouring myself a glass and like checking out, this is not this is not a healthy relationship with alcohol. I'm using it to escape something. And so if you want to sit down with friends, enjoy a glass of wine and enjoy your time, that's way, way, way different. So I think it's really important that we have a higher level of self-awareness as we engage in some of these things. So it's funny, I actually have a reel made that I haven't shared yet where it compares unhealthy ways of like decompressing and recharging with healthy.
Okay.
And I'm so hesitant to give like a list of things, but I'll do it anyway because I tend to think more big picture. But things that are healthy ways of recharging and coming back from burnout are the things that we know are healthy. They're like getting outside, taking a walk, connecting with our friendships, laughing. Through my first pregnancy, I think all I listened to was a comedy station on Pandora. Now we listen to Spot. And like, just laughing is really actually healing. There's a lot of research on that. Discharging, finding ways that you can discharge that feel really good. Participating in something that's creative. I remember, gosh, feels like forever ago, and also yesterday during COVID, our daughter and we painted a ton. Like we had so many crafts going. It was a hot mess in my house, but we painted. And I did not realize how absolutely healing that was to just create in a different way. And so there are lists all over the internet of things that we can do to recharge. I tend to think about recovery from burnout and burnout prevention a little bit differently.
I think that this is leading into your book, because you have a book that's coming out this fall that's available for pre-order, which we will link out, which I think, we talk about mom burnout, we talk about just burnout in general, and you have decided to do an entire book about it that talks about, mom burnout, and also 5 tips that you can kind of implement to help manage that. Because I think that the reality is that it seems that everybody's experiencing some level of burnout, and it's about giving people the tools to manage it. So maybe you don't get to a certain point where you're, snapping at your partner, snapping at your kid, doing a lot of the kind of numbing behaviors at the end of the day or throughout the day to kind of deal with this mom burnout, or also losing yourself in your, in parenting, which is a big part of everything that you talk about is, becoming a parent doesn't mean that you have to lose yourself in your children. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that that's kind of where you were leading into with what you were saying, and it
about
also
these things and just keep
that.
on going. So I don't want to like railroad anything.
No, it's great.
So
it's great.
I love the premises, just kind of how I conceptualize all types of relationships, especially our relationship with ourselves, is that it's pretty normal to become disconnected from ourselves. So we can label that as burnout, or being like imbalanced, or losing ourselves. That's sort of a normal experience. I think in parenthood, it's going to happen that you're going to reach a point of burnout at some point. And so I first want to start by kind of normalizing that, because we don't need an extra layer of shame on top of it. So, oh, I'm burnt out. I shouldn't be burnt out. I'm doing all of the things and now I feel bad about it, which then just leads to more burnout. And so I think it's important to just normalize that. It's normal to get imbalanced. Life is busy. Seasons bring extra challenges, different levels of busyness. My husband travels for work, for example. I'm sure your husband is gone a lot. And there are seasons of like, you're just white knuckling life. And so I just want to first say that's normal. That happens. But we have to figure out, how do we continually repair and come back into balance. And so finding a resting state of balance is a total myth. expect to become imbalanced, then you won't be surprised. But one of our responsibilities in our relationships and our relationship with ourselves is that we get really good at balancing. So we get good at resetting. And so that's the premise of my book, which is that moms are the master managers of all of the things, all of the people, all of the relationships. We're excellent at it. I think it's a gift that we have as women. It's a burden sometimes, but I think it's a beautiful thing. But we don't often manage our relationship with ourselves really well. And so that's what I talk about in the book, is how moms have to learn how to mother themselves like they mother their kids. And I give the 5 steps for doing that. And really what it is we have a relationship with ourselves that needs paying attention to and care and turning the dials and making adjustments. And so part of moving out of burnout is doing these check-ins with ourselves to see, where am I at? Because recovering from burnout is not, a lot of times when we talk about it, we talk about just like the physical things we can do, go for a walk, exercise, get your nails done, you know, take a nap. Like, we talk about these physical aspects of self for recovering from burnout, but really recovering from burnout includes other parts of self, like how we talk to ourselves, how we think about ourselves, how we express and meet our own needs, how we manage our energy, all of these different things. And so recovering from burnout is a practice that we have to integrate into our lives. And part of it is tuning into us, seeing what we need, and making those adjustments accordingly.
You did a reel today actually about partners who are, you know, a big part of moms and just parents in general, is the kind of team and the unit that you have at home to help you feel supported. Obviously, not everybody has a kind of ideal situation of, you know, equal partnership. Of course, if you want to have that, that's an amazing thing. And to be able to have that kind of communication is such a gift. It's so important to have really great parenting and partnership. Can you talk a little bit about, because we had a couple questions of actually husbands write questions asking how they can be more supportive to their wives in the mom burnout, noticing their wives are burnt out or feel burnt out, and wanting to do their best to support their wives or their partners.
Yes.
And
yes,
how to do that.
I can. And that's so nice that they wrote into you. Okay, so lots of things. I think one thing that I hear from moms all the time, what they really would like to hear is more acknowledgement and appreciation for all that they do. I know.
So
yes,
verbal
and
acknowledgement.
I know, like, my husband and I have had this conversation over the years of our relationship, because if he's not around, for example, to like help out or to actually give me time and space, if he's absent, then what can he give me? He can at least give me words that fill me up and energize me, make me feel appreciated. So I have a formula for giving these compliments that's really simple. The compliment goes like this: state that you see them. Say something that's like visible, like an observation, like, I see all that you do to take care of our kids when I'm not around. So what do you see? And then express how it's valuable to the family. When you do this, it makes me feel so at peace, because I don't need to worry about all that's going on in the home when I'm not around. So visible and valued, if you can incorporate that into a statement of appreciation, I think it goes a long way. Another thing partners can do is really work on like getting in their partner's world in the home. I hear all the time moms frustrated about their partners not taking initiative. So it's like they're willing maybe to help and do stuff, but it's on the moms and on the women usually to say, okay, but do X, Y, or Z, you know, here's the list. And so we're like managing an employee. And so if partners can work really hard to increase their awareness of what's going on in the home, it gives them an opportunity to jump in more. So I talked with this guy once about the mental load, and he said that he collects data in the home. He's like, I just think of it as like data collection. I'm paying attention to what the kids say. I'm watching my wife and what she's doing. And as I'm gathering all this data, it's giving me ideas for how I can jump in and support her. So I think that's another piece that would just blow your partners away. If you haven't been doing it, they would feel so appreciative. And then I'll just give one more, which is you can ask questions that help you to understand your partner's world a little bit better. So even the question of, hey, what's on your plate today? Fill me in on what's going on in your world. That amount of information that you give with a response is information your partner can use to jump in and support you and help you or take things off your plate. So ask questions about what's going on in their world so that you can actually take action and do something to support them.
Great. And mom guilt is also a big, subject on your page, and also a big subject that came in with people's questions, just talking about mom guilt being such a big role when it comes to burnout, feeling overwhelmed in motherhood, and also having a lot of judgment on yourself and also on other moms, and being kind of competitive with everyone's level of feeling burnt out. Can you talk a little bit about the role that mom guilt plays in that burnout category?
Guilt is this belief that we've crossed over some line, like we have this belief system, this value, and guilt is like we violated it in some way. And so sometimes, I just want to say, sometimes guilt is helpful. Like there's times where I've maybe lost it on our kids and been like, oof, my guilt's kicking in. This is not the mom I want to be. And so I make some adjustments. Right. But a lot of times in motherhood, we have this unnecessary guilt over things that we should not feel guilty about. Like, I'm going to the bathroom alone and I told my kid not to leave me alone and I feel like a bad mom. It's like, no, we are allowed to have privacy. But the thing with guilt is that it takes a lot of energy to manage. It affects our emotions completely. It's a negative emotion. And so when we're managing this negative emotionality, it's taking energy, which is then depleting our resources that kind of help us move through the day, have patience, and all of these other things. And so it depletes us. And the more depleted we are, the more likely we are to become burnt out. And it becomes this really vicious cycle, because it's like, okay, I feel guilty for what I did. It's depleting my energy because I'm managing all this negative emotionality. And then I'm running on empty. And so then I snap at my kids and now I'm going to feel guilty about that. And so I'm depleted some more. And so managing this mom guilt, addressing it, tackling it, this unnecessary guilt is really important, I think, to enjoy motherhood a lot more and to prevent burnout. I actually, hopefully this is okay to say, I have tons of free resources. I have a whole guide that people can find on my page that walks you through how you can combat mom guilt. And then I have another one about how to talk about the mental load.
That's amazing. I think that those kinds of resources are so helpful for people because, not everybody has access to being able to talk to, experts every single week on their own. So being able to have those resources and also just the information and content you put out on your page is amazing. The other thing that I saw being a common theme in the kind of questions were two things. One were a lot of stay-at-home moms who were trying to figure out ways to manage overstimulation and also burnout while being a stay-at-home mom. So not really knowing where to turn in their everyday roles and tasks to kind of have time for themselves, have ways to kind of have moments of caring for themselves while being a full stay-at-home mom, and how to kind of balance that, the roles of being a full-time mom and full-time stay-at-home mom, and then also wanting to be able to have a little bit of time for yourself. Yeah, I think
that one's really tricky. So a couple things. This piece I was talking about earlier about managing your relationship with yourself can become really powerful for stay-at-home moms, because doing a check-in and running through like, okay, how am I talking to myself? How am I expressing and meeting my needs? How am I taking care of my physical self? If you run through this self-check-in, which I outlined in the book, you can literally do that in the amount of time it takes you to like go to the bathroom. Like this is not, it was so important when I wrote the book that it was something that moms can implement in the frameworks of their life. I'm a mom. I work part-time at home. I homeschool. I like take care of the kids. Like I get it. Like, I'm crazy busy too, and all of us are. And so it was really important that I consider that. And so tuning into yourself, I realized I'm not giving like a specific thing to do, but rather do this check-in. I'm not saying like go for a walk at this time of day, but that can be so incredibly helpful because you can, one, pay attention to yourself, which a lot of times moms completely ignore ourselves for so long. That's when we feel lost, or we don't even know what we need anymore. The other thing that's really helpful about it is it helps you to define what's going on with you. And so either once you define it, you can make the change, or you can say, I know what's going on with me. I'm going to put a pin in this and I'm going to come back to it later when I actually do have the time. And I think that sometimes that just hits the release valve for us, because it's that experience of just swirling and being lost and not understanding why we feel so terrible that can add to our experience of overwhelm. So I think that's one piece. I think another, something that comes up, I don't know if this comes up in your community, but it does in mine, which is that a lot of times stay-at-home moms struggle with feeling entitled enough to ask for the time that they need to take care of themselves. They feel like because I'm a stay-at-home mom, I shouldn't have to ask for help. This is my only job. And I think that becomes the main hurdle to tackle. Because if you have a partner who's somewhat willing, then it's about you asking for what you need to get that extra time, if you need more time to meet your needs. And so part of it is, the guilt guide will help work through that, but part of it is identifying some of these like really impossible standards that they've held themselves to, like that one, and challenging them, holding them up to scrutiny, and then rewriting them and stepping into making some behavioral change.
Yeah, so one of the things that just jumped out to me when you were saying that was this idea that I think, I think we've gotten better as a society about making sure that we're aware of how much work goes into being a mother, and especially being a stay-at-home mom full-time. And one of the things that I have this really vivid memory when I was younger. I was in elementary school and my mom talking to other moms at school, and and moms saying to her, oh, I'm just a mom, I'm just a mom, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. And I remember my mom saying it one time to a mother, saying like, take out the just, like, you're a mom, you're a full-time mom, and that's amazing. That's a lot of work. That's a huge amount of everything going on all the time. That is a huge responsibility, and it's amazing work. It's the best work that you can do. It's incredible. Just take out the just and just say, I'm a mom. Be proud of it, be confident in it, and know that that is a huge job to do, is being a mom. And this, I saw when my mom said this to this mother, she started crying, because I think that she had felt like, comparing herself to other moms who maybe had certain full-time jobs and then came home to their kids, and she felt so less than because she was just staying at home all day, and she considered that to just be something that she was doing, when the reality is that like being a full-time mom is an incredible thing to do, and it is a lot of work. It's a huge, huge job. So I also think that that's always important to reiterate, and I see this a lot with moms, is just this comparison constantly of like, oh, she's not doing enough, or she's, can be doing more, or, I think moms, whether you have a full-time job or you're a full-time stay-at-home mom, all of these different things should be celebrated and not compared, because everybody, can do whatever it is that they want to do or that works for them. And celebrating all different forms of motherhood. I think that that's such an important part of this motherhood journey, that I watched my mom, celebrate so many different forms of motherhood and moms in general, and parenthood as well, because shout out to the dads as well. And also just knowing that like everybody is just trying to do their best and being helpful and being there for one another. That's something that I feel like one of the things of social media is being able to get support from each other, from other moms on social media, and then also seeing a lot of the criticism or kind of mom judgment on social media has been really strange to me. But also being able to lean on the community of moms and the kind of my mom friends to help each other and show up for one another has been such a really beautiful part of motherhood that I think is so special and so important. And I know not everybody has that, but it is such a, you know, this kind of village that we lean on and that we, you know, that we ask for support from at different points in motherhood is so important, and also, you know, contributes to
for sure
avoiding this burnout feeling.
Like, I love that she gave that woman a gift, but then she also gave you a gift for how you conceptualize and think about motherhood. And that's so incredible. And I think that, like, there's so many levels of motherhood that needs changing. There's like the macro societal piece, which I think there's this big issue of we associate value with how much money you earn. And so that's where it gets, I think, tricky for stay-at-home moms. Well, I'm not contributing to the financial ecosystem of my family, and so I'm less valuable, which is absolutely not true. We need to rewrite those societal scripts in many ways, which is really an overwhelming task to think about, but I think it's happening.
Right.
But also those scripts, those messages from society, from our caregivers, all these things are messages we absorb and internalize. And I think a lot of moms wrestle with those. We're changing the conversation, especially social media is helping to change that conversation. But a lot of us are still battling some of that stuff inside. You know, I'm just a stay-at-home mom, therefore fill in the blank, or I'm a mom, therefore I can't fill in the blank. So we have to really examine those messages we've internalized and start to rewrite those so that we can step into nurturing ourselves and caring for ourselves in meaningful ways and asserting our needs respectfully, but like asserting them when we've been maybe smushing them down for a really long time. And so I think it's just really beautiful what your mom said to you, because that's a script that's probably lived within you for your entire life.
For sure. Yeah, no, definitely. And lastly, before we go, because everybody's been asking about the Post-its behind your
After book too. I actually bought it as a gift for someone, hoping they were pregnant.
Oh my God,
with
yay,
a girl.
thank you.
I won't say who it's
I
for,
love
but
it.
yeah, it's going out. Okay, my Post-its. It's just life of a content creator. They're my pillars.
Oh my God, I love that. I love a good method of organization.
Gosh, I'm not very organized. And so this is my attempt. But yeah, posts about motherhood, about partners, and about self, because those are like, that's what I talk about all the time. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love all the content you put out, and I'm so grateful again that you know, slid into my DMs and that you even suggested talking about this. And I definitely want to come up and do another conversation like this as we get closer to your book coming out, because it's such a big topic. And when I did a poll yesterday asking about people feeling burnt out and feeling like they had tools, almost 80% of people said that they feel burnt out and they don't have tools to manage their burnout. So it is such a big topic that you're touching on and that you're talking about. And I'll make sure to include a link to pre-order, because it is such an important subject for parents. You know, whether you're a mom or you know a mom and you want to know how to support a fellow mom, it's such a big subject, and I'm really grateful that you have taken so much time to shine a light on it and also give people tips and resources to deal with it and help others experieing it as well. So congratulations, and thank you so much for taking time to chat today. Thank you. Have a good day.